Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Volpe Bazzo Report. I'm your co-host, Dominic Volpe.
Back from Florida with his Mai
Back
Tai.
from Florida, drinking the Mai Tais on the beach, as well as Andy Bazzo, my other co-host.
Good to see you again, Dominic.
Nice seeing you, Andy. We have two special guests with us tonight. We have Jeff Deskovic to my right, as well as William Lopez. Good story to talk about here, so let's go. Andy, take it
Listen,
over.
I want to get a couple of things out of the way. Number one, for the next two airings, we're not doing politics. This week we have Jeffrey Deskovic, who is president of...
The Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice.
Okay, and William Lopez is one of your first...
One of the first people that the organization has managed to free after 23 and a half years of wrongful imprisonment.
Okay, and the next show we're going to be doing after these shows run is going to be with the president of the Peekskill Museum,
correct.
John Curran. So we're going to break away for a month from politics. But I want to get some of the homework out right of the way. For the Yorktown residents, we know that Susan Siegel is now seeking the Democrat nod for town supervisor. My sources tell me she's not going to get it, but she's going to try. Don't be surprised if Michael Grace runs unopposed as far as major parties go, because he hasn't ticked off enough people to lose and nobody wants to. Donnie Peters has already said he's not going to run. We got the race to watch right now, and it's going to be primaried on both the Republican and Democrat side, is highway superintendent. You have Dave Paganelli and Gregory Bernard on the Republican side. You have three people on the Democrat side.
Tom
Diana, Steve Gardner, and it's in my column, a gentleman named Vitoli, who only moved to Yorktown 2 years ago. And you're going to be hearing a lot about this. And by the way, you can see my roundup of the races in the Yorktown News, where you can find my column every week. You can find my column every week on the Yorktown News. So that's that. And one thing I want to mention now for this people, residents of Cortland. My friend Dominic, as we all know, has run for office before, 5 times before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he's seeking to be because you actually have 2 openings for the first time, and they didn't die on the Cortland Town Board for council. They're actually retiring of their own volition. And Dominic would like to be one of the councilmen, and hopefully by our next taping, which will be in April, we will have good news.
Right.
But what does it look like right now? You've had a couple of meetings with...
Well, we've already gone through the interview process. We had a major meeting last night, and there are 6 very
We're
good...
taping on March 6th, so he's talking about March 5th.
Right, so we have 6 of very good, viable candidates. And unfortunately, there's only 2 positions that, are available. So it's going to be, it's tough. There's a lot of, I don't want to call it infighting, but, everybody tries to lobby and support their own favorite people.
So the truth of the matter is you still got the bug.
So we still got the bug. We still want to we're committed to our community. I'm trying hard to help out in every way. So, the commitment, the passion is still there, and that's really what you need.
And the support from your family.
Well, the family support is already there.
And you already know your friends are behind you.
Right.
I mean, you had all your ducks in a row before you decided, I want to try this again.
Absolutely. You really have to have that before you even make any sort of commitment. This is not a 2-3 week process. This is a 7-month marathon. It takes a long time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort.
Well, folks, with your help, talking to your representatives and district leaders, maybe you can make this possible, and we'll have good news when we tape in April. So don't sit on your duff. Let's get Dominic on the ballot, because your politics itself needs people like Dominic that are real, that are not political, and that can actually accomplish things for best. Like Dave Paganelli in Yorktown would say, Dominic operates pure of heart. Now let's get to the show.
Yes.
And Dominic, I'll let you, Jeff.
Let's go to Jeff, yes.
First of all, explain your foundation, and we were told, and we're going to do the plug for money in the beginning. We're not doing it at the end, so tell the people your foundation, where they can find it, and how they can help you.
Yeah, the foundation is called the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice, named after me because I served 16 years in prison prior to being proven innocent through DNA testing 6 years ago. I felt strongly about trying to help people who were wrongfully convicted, who I metaphorically left behind. So I took $1.5 million of my personal compensation money and I used it to launch the organization. And the other guest here is our first success story. We'll get to him in a few moments. For those who would like to think that helping to support our work of freeing people wrongfully convicted is a worthwhile cause, please consider us for a donation. The address is 133 West 72nd Street, New York, New York, 10023. We are a recognized 501c3, so you will get a tax break for your contribution.
Now, where's your website?
The website is www.thejeffreydeskovicfoundationforjustice.org.
What was that again?
The Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation.org.
Okay. Now, talking about you were in prison, you're your own first success story, even though we say William here is your first, but actually you're your first success story. Brief synopsis, you were in prison for?
I was in prison for 16 years.
For a crime you did not commit.
Exactly.
Now, you were exonerated by DNA.
Yes, I was.
Okay, they actually found the real killer, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you sued for wrongful imprisonment.
Yes.
And you actually were successful. You sued the state, Westchester County, and the city of Peekskill.
As well as Putnam County and Legal Aid Society.
Okay, now let's start with the state. Where's your status with that?
I settled with New York State.
Okay, Westchester County.
I settled with them.
Putnam County.
Still in litigation.
City of Peekskill.
Still in litigation.
Legal aid.
Settled.
Okay, so we're not going to get into the exact dollar amounts because let's just face it, ladies. He's single. He's looking for a good girl, and he can take you out on a very expensive date. So he can take you to good restaurants and good shows. And he's cute.
But the first question: why the entanglement from different county to different county?
Yeah.
That's the first question I'd have.
Because the Peekskill Police Department transported me from Peekskill to Putnam County for the purpose of having me interrogated and polygraphed by a Putnam County Sheriff's investigator.
Okay.
So that's Peekskill Putnam connection. Westchester County came in because the medical examiner committed fraud in his findings. He claimed that he found medical evidence showing the victim was sexually active, which is what opened the door for the prosecutor to basically argue it didn't matter, the DNA didn't come from me because it could have come from sex she had with somebody else. Legal aid came in because they provided deficient legal representation, never presenting my alibi evidence amongst a whole host of other
that
failings.
was on behalf of you, in a sense.
Yes.
The ones that supported you or backed your story, in a sense. Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. I see. Gotcha.
And just quickly, because I'm going to ask William the same question. Did you lose hope when you were 16? I mean, you were how old when you went in?
I was 16 when I was arrested. I turned 17, and 2 months after that, I was convicted. I was incarcerated continuously till 32.
There you are, that young. Did you ever lose hope?
Yes. When in 2005, all of my appeals had been over in 2001. For 4 years, nobody was answering my letters for help, and then the parole board also turned me down. So I thought I was going to die in there at that point.
How many times were you allowed to appeal?
I appealed 7 times.
7 times. Oh, so is it just, in other words, if you lose an appeal, you're still allowed to appeal based on new evidence, other evidence that's introduced, or can you still appeal on the same basis each time? In other words, how many times can you exhaust that process?
Yeah, you go through the system once. The first set of issues that you raise, you're limited to those as you fight your way up through the system. If you do find new evidence, then you introduce it again to the trial court, and then you can appeal that all the way up again.
Gotcha.
Now, because just to jump a second, William told me he did his own lawyer as a paralegal when he was in jail. Did you do your own lawyering in prison?
No, I did learn the law, and I used to send information and my own thoughts and strategies to my lawyers, but I did have lawyers also.
Heard you?
Yeah.
Finally.
Who was the game breaker in 2005?
There were 2 people. Firstly, an investigator, Claudia Whitman. She helped me network successfully to the Innocence Project, and when they agreed to represent me. So those are the 2 game breaks for me.
Okay, now you're giving back.
Yes.
And William Lopez here. What's your story, William? What were you incarcerated for?
Well, sir, I was incarcerated for allegedly murdering a drug dealer in 1989.
And how old were you?
I was 30 years old, sir.
Oh, so you were older. So what made you find William?
Or
did William find you?
William and his attorneys found me. He had 2 attorneys who were helping him, Richard Levitt and Yvonne Shivers. They reached out to us after representing him for about 7 years, and they needed us to do some supplemental investigative work. So we found additional evidence of his innocence. We also used resources that we had. We had ties to a law firm in the Dominican Republic, which is where a key witness had been deported to. So we spent about 20 hours on the phone there through that law firm, lining up another well-equipped, bilingual, reputable law firm who could help track down the witness and secure a statement and accompany the lawyer who, when he traveled there, got a written statement. Ultimately, that witness testified.
From start to finish, how long did this take?
For Mr. Lopez?
Yeah,
For Mr. Lopez, from the moment you got involved until you were finally exonerated, correct?
That's correct, sir.
So you're not on parole.
Not on parole.
That's so.
Absolved
So the term ex-con would be incorrect.
Incorrect, sir. That's right.
I'm really happy to know. Yeah, that's. I mean, you need people like Jeff that know how to give back. So how long does it take? Did it take from start to finish?
Well,
Roughly.
It took Mr. Lopez 23 and a half years. We came in we came in on the last year. So it's like somebody builds a house and then there's a section of brick that needs. We came in and filled in the section of brick.
Now, you're in 23 years. You're 30. How old are you now?
I'm 54
Right,
now.
So there you are, 30 years old. Your whole life is turned upside down. You know in your heart you didn't do this thing. Do you lose hope? I told you I was going to ask you the same question I asked him.
No, not exactly, Andy. I actually, because I didn't commit the crime, because I always knew in my heart that I was innocent of this thing, I never gave up. I says, there's got to be, somebody good out there that's going to eventually catch on to this mistake, this gross mistake, and was going to correct it.
How long before somebody heard you?
Actually, well, it took me about 5 years, 15 years into the commitment. Before a federal judge finally said, well, Mr. Lopez, I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to assign you counsel and an investigator.
Now, you said while you were in prison, you became your own paralegal.
That's correct.
So you didn't know anything about the law beforehand?
That's absolutely correct.
Now you do.
Now I do. I actually had to find time and to learn the stuff, to become acquainted with it, and well enough to overcome this thing, because my lawyering wasn't actually doing the right thing.
If I could break in just for a brief
Yes,
second,
sure.
just in terms of the after part, Mr. Lopez would love to be able to find a job doing paralegal work now that he's free.
I was going to go there, Jeff. We've known each other a long time now, 6 years. I was going to ask the same thing. I assume you're qualified to be a paralegal.
Yes, sir. I took a correspondence paralegal on Blackstone for a couple of years, and I have worked throughout the state for 15
and also
years.
being in prison should qualify you for working with lawyers. You're used to not having honest work.
That's true. I had to become my own lawyer. And I had
Getting
to,
back, you mentioned before, Jeffrey, the Innocence Project, I believe.
Yes.
Did you base your foundation basically in a sense a model of that, or are you different, or are you same?
Both.
Both.
Okay, firstly, look, I admire the organization. They helped get me out. They've been around for 20 years, so I took the principles and things they've done successfully, and I've tried, I've went to school on their experience. No need to reinvent the wheel. The difference is the Innocence Project will only take on DNA cases, whereas DNA is only around 5 to 12%. We take on DNA on non-DNA cases. Mr. Lopez here is an example of a non-DNA case.
You were involved in this when you were on my other show.
Yes.
Okay, now I remember this conversation about DNA and non-DNA, the difference in the. Now, who came to who? He went to you, or you went to him?
No, he came to me.
And what made you say? Because you have to look at this stuff. This is the one.
Because
Gut, or do you go with your gut?
No, I go with an educated guess. We review the documents and we make a decision. So what made it is there was basically, in short, there were two witnesses against him. One of them could not make an in-court identification of Mr. Lopez. The trial judge even said it's clear that this, first of all, the witness can't identify him, and secondly, she couldn't possibly have seen what she claimed to have saw from where she claimed. So that was one thing. That reduced the case to one witness who had been up for 24 hours prior to the crime happening, and who had smoked 12 vials of crack.
Well,
so there's no credible evidence.
They were up for 24 hours. I knew they had help.
So there's those aspects of it, and then also we knew that Mr. Lopez had two alibi witnesses that his trial attorney never even interviewed, much less called as witnesses. So when you put it all together, Mr. Lopez's innocence jumped off the pages to us.
Is that in a sense was that a lawyer that he had hired, or once again, is that legal aid being that he requested
As far as
at that time that represented him?
I'll let you answer that part of it.
Well, actually, that was a judge, a federal judge, granting a re-argument reconsideration motion in 2005, granted me attorneys, assigned counsel, private counsel, which worked on a not pro bono, but on a CJA, and he also assigned the investigator.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a group of, let me put it this way, are you inundated with other, I don't want to call them projects, people that, approach you, contact you, and, is it a matter of that you have 100 on your desk, and, do you do research on the ones that you think, look, there's a 50-50 chance here, but we've got 75%, we think we can exonerate this, or 90%, is that why the foundation needs money? In other words, because at that point, there's, I'm sure, or do you have right now, like, other cases that you're
Your
involved
mailbox
with?
Wait, you're asking me too many questions
He's
at
asking
once.
you if your mailbox is full.
I'm going to answer, but I want to just back up for a second to the prior question. The other distinguishing factors is the other organizations don't help reintegrate the people. They get them out, and then that's it. So that's another difference. A third difference is that any of our clients, once we're working actively on their case, if they have a parole hearing coming up, then we also try to get them out on parole so that they're not in prison while we continue the investigation. That's a third. That's another distinction.
Okay, what I want to.
Then I want to get
when
to
you said the Innocence Project only
Yes.
does DNA, is that because that's the low-hanging fruit?
Yes.
And you said I'm going to go after the more different. Besides that,
Besides
you're
that,
going to go.
yes. Yes, it is. And the other reason also is they do a lot of policy work, and by generating the DNA exoneration cases, since it's scientific, nobody can dispute using a case as data to support different reforms. No one can say, well, no, this reform is not correct because you're basing it on this case, and this case here, you might say he's innocent, but we say he's not.
Gotcha.
So okay, so.
But let me ask your question.
Right.
Okay.
But his
Okay.
question would be: is your mailbox full?
Yes. Yes, it is. We're averaging 15 requests for help every week. There are currently 800 cases that are awaiting preliminary review and determination whether A, we believe the person has a colorable claim of innocence, and B, whether we could possibly do something for them or not. And number 3, we have 12 cases that are under active
How
investigation.
many people are on your staff?
We have 4 people plus myself.
And you actually look over these things personally, right?
Here's how it goes.
Or do you have people give you a synopsis?
I have people give me a synopsis. We've divided responsibilities. The assistant director, Richard Blasberg, former editor of the Guardian, he handles the legal department, which consists of himself, our investigator, and our attorney. Occasionally, I sit in on strategy sessions with them, and I say, well, I suggest in the generic different avenues of inquiry based on my knowledge of other cases. But I let them do the legal stuff, and I personally focus on trying to raise money for the organization, promotion, policy work, and raising awareness.
So you let the lawyers do the lawyering, you do the PR.
Yes, and the policy stuff.
Is it a case where, for example, and I'm sure with you just mentioned 800 cases, is it where you say, okay, look, let's give each one a shot? In other words, whether it's the legal aspect of it, and then based on how that comes back, whatever the...
Well, we base it on what the likelihood of being able to turn a case around.
Right.
I mean, it's a very limited amount of resources.
Exactly.
And the reason why we need the money is not just because of that case. Well, it is because of that caseload. But here's the thing, is that first of all, I need to make things sustainable to continue what I have. But more importantly, I want to be able to expand. I want to be able to hire more investigators, more attorneys, so that we can work on more of these cases.
So I'm assuming what we're doing, what your work, the grunt work, the investigative work, that's where everything hinges.
Yes.
Not because you already know the legal work; it's there, it's
Right.
black and white. But it's the investigators. That's where the real
Nuts and bolts.
Yes, it does.
Nuts and
Well, the
bolts
first
is-
thing is
and-
the
and
selection of
probably-
cases, and then nuts and bolts is, yes, you're right, is the investigative work.
So now, when I want to go to William a second. When,
Can I just add one thing, though? Just to be clear, we don't make legal arguments. We don't argue points of law. That has its place. That's not us. We do investigative work and then legal work in order to make a claim of actual innocence in the court. We're only on innocence.
Right. You're
Right.
basically, yeah, exactly. You're not going to change the ruling. What you're looking for is the evidence that led to the ruling.
Right.
And
You're
gonna
looking for
refute
the
Yes.
exoneration,
Yes,
where the term ex-con no longer applies.
right. We're looking to prove the innocence of people. Right.
That's it. Now, when you finally got the good news, when did you finally get your good news, William?
Well, I finally got my good news. It was actually January 23rd.
This year.
We
This-
gave him the
that's
good news.
right.
We got the decision before William actually got the decision, and we read the decision
That's-
to him, the key parts, while he was on the phone in prison.
Now, you know
Yes.
the feeling when somebody tells you it's over.
Yes.
How did it feel to look at somebody for the first time and say, it's over?
It was a realization of a dream, the effort and time.
How did it feel?
It felt surreal. I almost didn't believe it was happening.
Well, how about you? How did it feel to hear those words?
Oh, it was awesome. Awesome.
But I do want to make one caveat, though, that although Williams' conviction's been overturned and the judge ruled that he made a strong showing of actual innocence and had received ineffective assistance of counsel, his case isn't over in the sense that the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office has vowed to appeal the ruling, and they're also saying that they're going to retry him should that appeal
I
not be
think the
successful.
Brooklyn District Attorney's Office, if you read the papers, got his own hands full with his own problems at the moment. Mr. Hines, that's who the DA
Yes.
is, he's got his own little problems right now. I don't think you are on his radar at the moment. He's, between some of his inept DAs that sometimes make the Bronx look like they're competent.
But there's a number of other
And
local-
he's been around forever. I think, and he's in an election. I don't think you're on his radar.
really quickly, and then we'll go to your question, but Mr. Lopez's case is not the only case from where Mr. Hines has come under scrutiny. There was a Jabbar Collins case where he did 16 years wrongfully, Sammy Lako did
Well, yeah.
13, and a whole host of too many names.
That's what I'm
to
saying.
mention.
He's got his own problems in this election season to fend off incompetence in his own staff. Well, I mean, I've read the reports in the papers where the judges were actually yelling at his
Yes,
ADAs.
yes.
That's right.
On incompetence and
The prosecutorial misconduct.
right. When a judge actually gets like that, then you know that something's not right. So now, where do you go with him now? He's out.
We're helping him to reintegrate. We just helped him get an apartment yesterday, as a matter of fact. We've provided him with some emergency funding to handle his immediate costs of needs. I
mean, you don't do like the prison system, just jump him on the street in the Bronx and
absolutely.
say you're on your
I'm not
own.
going to answer that. I'm going to let him answer that.
No, absolutely not. Jeffrey's been a blessing in this guy. He's helped me dramatically and incredibly in reintegrating and finding an apartment now and making it a lot easier for this transition.
You have family?
Yes, I do, sir.
How did they support you through this, or did they?
Well,
Did they believe you, or did they not believe
Well,
you?
you have some that do and some, unfortunately, that
Sure,
that
even
don't.
to this day still don't.
Yeah, because of the generally people feel that the system overall works,
Right.
and some people are really
Because if I'm
embedded
correct,
in that.
Jeff,
In
you
that.
had support from your family.
Well, my mother consistently came to see me. I mean, my other two sets of aunts and uncles, once every 3-4 years would come to see me, but then the rest of them didn't. It just depends on what you mean by support. Nobody stepped up and said, "Look, Jeff, we believe that you're innocent. We have properties, we have money. We'll help get you legal services." Nobody did that.
Right.
They-
Well, you were really alone.
Yes. No, I was.
At 6, that's scary at your age. Wow.
I'm lucky to be sitting here.
Yes.
Two questions. Are you allowed, because of your foundation, can you apply for state grants, federal grants in order to assist with monies that, to recoup in order when you help out individuals?
When we've looked at governmental grants, most of them, they want the organization to have been in existence for 5 years. This is year one.
Oh.
And
So
and
you still
secondly,
don't qualify
we
under
still
those
don't
guidelines.
qualify. And then they want to know which cases have you won. That Mr. Lopez is our first success, but keeping in mind too that we played a role. We didn't do his case from soup to nuts.
Correct.
We handled
You were
part
part
of
of
it. We
the
were part of the
equation.
overall. So I guess both of those things really, and then the amount of paperwork that's required, the reporting. I would have to hire an additional person just to meet all
Just
the
the grant
reporting.
write.
Exactly. By the time I'm done, it's very little left over. That's why I think getting individual supporters is more the way to go to get me to year 5.
Right.
To then, and then depending on the grant size, that could possibly become viable.
Are you allowed now, because you think, according to Jeffrey, the Brooklyn Appellate Court or the Brooklyn DA may appeal, can he, at this point, sue now the state as you did? In other words, is he entitled to anything based on the fact that it was a wrongful imprisonment?
As of right now, the answer is no. It's when his case is completely terminated in his behalf.
And only
then and only then
Gotcha.
can he apply for compensation
So for
in New
right
York State
now-
and the federal. So for right now, no. As of now, the answer is no.
And his only life support is your foundation, in a
Exactly
sense,
right.
until he finds a job.
Yes,
Till we get him a
that's
job as a paralegal.
That's correct. No.
One thing you must know is the court system now. You'd be an asset to anybody's law firm. I know
I would
you
pro-
know as well as I do. Practical experience beats everything.
agreed,
You
agreed.
can't teach what you learned.
I do hold a distinct characteristic in knowing it and being actually part of and actually
Will,
So you
injured.
go to all the schools you want, you can't teach what you learned.
William, however, if you put in a resume, do you have to show any of the activity on the law side, in a sense? In other words, do you put down that you were in Greenhaven for X amount of years, whatever that is? In other words, does it taint you in that sense that, maybe a prospective employer will say, I'm not taking the chance, I don't want this guy around. You know what I mean? Does it hurt in that aspect?
Well, see, he doesn't have to put it because the conviction's overturned.
Right.
However, how does he explain
Right.
this 23 and a half year
23
gap?
and a
What
half.
did
Yeah.
what did you do? And if
Yeah.
anyone does a Google search, his name will come up.
Do
Exactly.
you know the name Rumpelstiltskin?
Yes, I do. Yes, I
No,
do.
Rip Van Winkle.
Rip-
You know the name?
Rip-
That can
Rip-
explain the gaps. I just woke up. I was sleeping. It was a bad jug of Jack Daniels. That might help explain it. But anyway, I want to go over because we're down to maybe a couple of precious minutes.
2 minutes.
Right. Again, the website.
www.thejeffreydeskovicfoundationforjustice.org.
And how
If that's
can
too
they-
much to remember, just put Jeffrey Deskovic in a Google search. My foundation will come
And
up.
how can they send you money if they believe in you? Do you need help too, by the
No,
way? Not
I-
just
listen,
money. Do you
no.
need bodies?
No, I do need help. If we could get some volunteers, that's one thing. Certainly getting more exposure, so media can help in that aspect. If people want to make a donation, they can donate through the website. They can also send us a check via snail mail. That would help. But even more important than people's checks, it's not just getting a check from somebody, but if they were willing to open their networks to people that also might be willing to get behind us to whatever extent. Remember, the president, regardless of his politics, he raised $100 million with donations primarily ranging from $10 to $100. So if we all do a little
I'm
bit,
just
we can
looking
do a
at
lot.
The fact of needing bodies, that there
Yes.
are people that can't give money,
Right.
but they can give time, their expertise, like you say, investigators, and you have people
Yes.
that are in that field that can say, maybe I can do some good.
There's certainly room for volunteers, absolutely, 100%.
So,
Final word, hope is alive
Hope is alive
and moving forward.
Hope is alive and moving forward, and Mr. Lopez is an inspiration to me to continue down this course that we can free people wrongfully imprisoned, not simply in DNA, but also in non-DNA. But
Now,
your
do
final
you-
thought, though, if you
I
have.
want to know, in the final thought, do you now do what Jeff did and pass on your good fortune to others?
Well, I think that what Jeffrey's doing is vital, extremely vital for individuals that are being exonerated, coming into the communities without any type of resources or any type of assistance. His reintegration program it's priceless. He's been a dream. He's been very vital to me.
Anyway, we got to wrap it up. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I hope you do. Hope
Thank
this
you,
show
Andy.
helps you find a job.
Thank you, sir.
Jeff,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Andy.
We'll be back again, I hope.
I absolutely will.
I
Please.
mean, I love you having us as a guest, and then when you have more news, to come
Absolutely.
on, I want you to call me right away.
I promise I will. Thanks
We'll
for
do an
having me.
update every 6 months, I
Something
guess,
like
something
that.
like that.
Listen, these were what they said, and what say you, but this is also what I say and what say you. Say good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
You're not going to be in Florida next week.
No.
You're gonna be